Hey guys, the only thing better than watching Tucker porn is when the Tucker porn is all about you. And I had the joy of doing that over the weekend and saw a guy who looks like Eric Estrada's uncle is, he's still a student. He looks older than me and I'm old as hell. Discussing why not only should I not be allowed to speak at NYU, but the NYU Republican Club should be banished for even considering the idea, for inviting me. They should be shut down. Sounds logical. Let's see Tucker take it apart, doing that face that he does where he goes, well. How old is that guy?
The paper appears to suggest the Republicans at NYU should be sanctioned in some way for daring to have Gavin McInnes on campus, and your justification for that is that his views are so beyond the pale, beyond, as you put it, our democratic values, that we shouldn't be allowed to hear them.
See, Tucker, what I really don't want you to do is do what the student paper at NYU did, which is put words in my mouth and change my words. Let me sort of tell my own story. Is that okay?
Yes,
so,
with haste.
So what I'm trying to, one of the sentences that was actually taken out, which made me very angry, was the question: does the university, is it obliged to protect the speech of someone who comes on campus and advocates and recruits for Al-Qaeda?
Can you just pause it, John? This is a common trick with the left. They take ridiculous scenarios and then try to walk you backwards into their theories. Like, we need abortion because what if she was raped by her father? Then she should, she shouldn't have to keep the baby. And he has to say, what if he was recruiting Al-Qaeda? Are you against him yet? And that just shows how bad your idea is when you have to get ridiculous to pull anyone on board. It's sort of like when people always say to me, they go, what about your daughter? What if your daughter was involved? And it's a trick to make you irrational. And if you need to make me irrational and angry to get to your side, well, then your side is not a good side to be on. It's a nutty side. And no, I wasn't even remotely considering recruiting for Al-Qaeda or anything of the sort. It was a talk, not a recruitment seminar. But go ahead, weird head.
I don't know that is at question here. We're talking about Gavin McInnes.
It's exactly the question that I want to raise, which was suppressed. So I'm bringing that question. Another question that was altered is the question: should the university protect someone who comes on campus and advocates vigilante violence against police officers who've killed civilians and have not been indicted? Is that protected? Should that be protected on campus?
That was,
that was suppressed on, by those editors. And I want a place where I can.
Okay, just stop it again. Now, this guy is obviously used to talking to 20-year-olds. He appears to be a 40-year-old student who looks like a Hispanic hamster. And he's not used to anyone knowing what they're talking about. But Tucker's done his homework. So when you throw a hypothetical at him, he can tell you the court case that solidified that hypothetical as real. And watch his face after Tucker pulls that out of his magic hat.
What do you think about this? Should someone who actually advocates killing police officers be allowed to debate on a campus, or no, not even debate, to sort of come on and say what they believe on campus?
If you are asking me a question, then let me answer it.
Tell me.
This is not a question for college administrators to decide. It's been decided by the Supreme Court in a case called Brandenburg versus Ohio, 1969, the last big free speech case. And the upshot of it is that advocating violence is indeed protected speech. And, of course, politicians do it all the time. We ought to bomb
No one's ever done that to you before, have they, buddy?
That's protected by the First Amendment. What is not protected is inciting violence, imminent violence, destruction, or mayhem. I cannot say, go smash the windows of that liquor store.
Duh.
So here's my point. Anything Gavin McInnes conceivably said or would have said on your campus is protected speech. Now, if you'd taken 10 minutes to Google this, you'd know that. And so there's really not a close call here. What he's doing is protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. So for you to say that people should be sanctioned,
do you think people should recruit for Al-Qaeda on a college campus?
Can you just pause it? Do you know where he's going with this analogy? I'm recruiting for Nazis. So if you support Trump and you are cool with his travel ban and you're cool with him closing borders, you're a racist Nazi. Okay, there's no arguing that. Then they take that ridiculous assumption and they go farther and say, if you do a talk, you're recruiting white supremacists. I've heard Yvette Falarco over at By Any Means Necessary say this. Then you're recruiting. And what I keep saying to the left is, play it through. Okay, so I'm a Nazi. And don't take that out of context and make it into a GIF. All right, I'm here signing up people, students, for the new Nazi movement. Anyone? Anyone? How many people would sign up at NYU? 0 would. And the irony is that's what my talk was going to be about. I was going to do a talk about this mythical Nazi and this fake white supremacy that your fake students who are old as hell, these assistant professors who call themselves students, how old is this guy? He's already got a turkey neck, are brainwashing you into thinking is real. Anyway, get back to the Tucker porn.
Well, of course,
I'm losing my boner.
Al-Qaeda.
Okay, do you think they should be protected by administrators on a campus?
I think people ought to be able to express their political views no matter how repugnant to you or me or anyone else, as long as they, in accordance with the Supreme Court decision from 1969, are not inciting imminent violence. I believe I'm understanding that correctly, and I think that you should. And I think the college administrators
I do believe
understand
that.
that.
I absolutely do believe that. But I also believe that there are arguments, there are points to be made that are beyond the pale of responsible dialogue.
Okay.
Right?
So, but,
and I think
what?
someone coming and saying...
He hasn't said one.
I just did 2. Both of which were suppressed, that were not allowed to be discussed in that newspaper, but and which you have not really answered my question either.
By the way, can you just pause it here? His 2 snares are: 1, recruiting for Al-Qaeda. That's not talking, that's recruiting. Second, his one was, should you be able to advocate for police violence? Yes, you should, and they do. And that is very dangerous. Not only do professors and students and everyone at college talk about the good side of killing cops and chanting it, what do we want, dead cops? This has led to dead cops. So if we should be censoring anyone, which we shouldn't, your side is the one with the death toll. Where are these Nazi death tolls? Where are these Klansmen going out and killing people? And again, we're not even Nazis or Klansmen. So you're the guys with a body count, and we are the guys who have to shut up because you've fictitiously linked us to evil men who don't exist. God, I hate this guy.
We do not live in a society in which any speech should or is guaranteed. Okay? So, and I also believe, I was sitting on a subway on the way here, right? And I was sitting on a subway in New York City, and I invite all your listeners to come to and sit in a subway station in New York City, where you sit with a cross-section of humanity that is amazing.
What is this, a Beastie Boys song?
And you know what quote came to my mind? Right? We believe
the Beastie Boys letter to New York?
All men are created equal. This is the founding
You're starting to lose me. You're starting to lose me.
What the hell are you talking? Okay, can you just pause it for a second here? He's talking about this common myth we hear about New York, where Puerto Ricans and blacks all get together on the subway. Yeah, we do, and we hate it. We hate each other. New York is not a melting pot. Hasidic Jews, Puerto Ricans, they don't know each other. In fact, I'm surprised you don't have Puerto Ricans bumping into rabbis on the street and going, oh, I didn't see you there. I live on a separate dimension. We're not friends on the subway. When those idiot breakdancers do their glorified pole dancing, the only people going yay are German tourists. The rest of us are going, I dare you to get close to me. If your foot swings by my face, I swear to God, I'm going to go to the tombs massacring you. You son of a bitch, sit down. God damn it, we're all squished in there. What do they think we're doing, going up to the Indian family? Ah, ki hal chale, ar tik tak. Oh, your wife is a piali larki. Hey, breakdancing guy, can you show me how to do the Dougie? Wow, this is awesome. Hello, who'd like haggis? It's Rabbi Burns Day. I've got my kilt on. I'm showing you Scottish cuisine. How naive can you play that Beastie Boys song? We come together on the subway cars, diversity unify wherever you are.
We doing fine on the 1 and 9.
Not true. Not true. Writers, prize fighters, and Wall Street traders, we come together on the subway cars. Yes, you left out the word reluctantly. But anyway, let's get back to the porn.
All men are created equal. When someone likens people of color to monkeys, that resonates for some people to be beyond the pale of acceptable American values, right? Because if our country is based
Tucker
on
has no idea what he's
we're all
talking
equal,
about.
then you cannot, right, have an argument about whether some people are below human. That to me is not something.
First of all, can you pause it here? First of all, if someone did believe that, I would love to hear their argument. That's insane. I've never met anyone, I never will, who thinks that black people are not human. But just for the record, what he's talking about there is, I was watching a documentary with my boy, and it was about monkeys. And he said he thought, he was 6 at the time, he thought that the same monkeys are in the same documentaries. So he saw a capuchin monkey from another documentary we had seen, and he said, oh, that's my favorite monkey actress. she was in the other movie. I thought that was funny. When I brought it up on my show the next day, I said, very rude joke, but I said, mine's Jada Pinkett Smith. Now, this was because she had done her speech the day before where she talked about how America's racist and the Oscars are racist. So my joke was pretending that she was right and that we are incredibly racist and America's horrible and the Oscars are racist and that whole... Remember that video where she's sitting on her leg? I did a parody of her where she's like, this is what I do know. So I'd been making fun of Jada Pinkett Smith that week, and I made a horrible racist joke. It was not a dictum, and it had nothing to do with a consistent belief that a certain group is not human. But this guy has made it into that, and then saying not only should I not be able to speak to further this Jada Pinkett Smith joke, but the club that invited me should be shut down. This is the kind of tiny morsels of bigotry that they are blowing up into the Third Reich. It's pathetic. All right, guys, back to work. Love you. Press play.
You don't like it, and I don't either, and I think that's, an awful sentiment, and I would never defend it. And yet both of us are bound as Americans to defend the right of people to express views that we disagree with.
I spoke to Tucker about this after, actually.
If they are short of inciting
I explained him the Jada Pinkett thing, and he goes, yeah, I'd never heard that story, but I knew that you slept with tons of black chicks, so I thought, that can't be right. I'm glad he didn't say that on the air.
I disagree with you. Here's the counter case. Here's why you're wrong. Here's
that's a tough counter case.
But we cannot prevent people from expressing what they believe. That is the essence of our democratic values, the ones you appealed to.
By the way,
you don't seem to...
I love how Tucker is forced to defend someone who thinks black people are monkeys, someone who's there to encourage violence against cops, have cops murdered and get away with it, and someone who's there to recruit for Al-Qaeda. How did we get off into analogy land? Why don't you defend the fact that you think the NYU Republicans should be banned because they invited me? Why don't you have to defend reality? Why are we forced to get into a little space pod and get shot way out to Mars and then have to defend that hypothetical? That's how shitty you are at making your point, that we have to go to Mars to make it a fair fight.
To understand that.
So you would stand up for someone who actually wants to recruit for an organization that has said they want to hurt the United States. You would stand up for the right of that person to speak on a college campus. College campuses are not American society. College campuses are specific places where people are debating and talking to each other.
Did you hear that? Stop. College campuses are a place where people are debating and talking to each other. And this guy is trying to shut down an organization that wanted to have a talk. Are these people aware of how unbelievably retarded they look? This guy is even uglier on the inside.
Except when they
I'm running out of patience here. Well, let's keep going.
In which case you write them out of the protection by saying they're somehow beyond the pale. Now, I'm asked you clearly, what about Gavin McInnes's position is so far outside the mainstream that it doesn't fall under the First Amendment?
Calling an African American a monkey?
Oh, can you just send me to joke prison for a year?
Okay.
All right.
I'm not saying
and the point is that if someone like that,
so you're saying
now I'm someone like that if you make a stupid joke.
The Republican students need to bring conservative ideas onto campus. We need to know why.
Ideas on the campus. He talks like Blair from Facts of Life. I mean, Jerry, Blair's cousin.
Deregulation of environmental
regulation.
Well,
you're conservative? Why is it up to you to define what conservative ideas are?
I believe in real discussion.
No, you don't, you fucking liar.
Instead of bringing that question on campus, they bring someone outside of the pale of any rational discussion who calls,
so I wonder, I'm going to do
an African American a monkey.
Okay,
that's what the Republican students bring on campus.
That. Hold on, wait, stop. I don't want to get into
Don't ever make a joke like that again, guys, if you're watching. Your penance never ends.
I would actually challenge you to cite chapter and verse on that. I don't believe he actually said that. If he did, obviously I find that repugnant.
There's a link.
Read
the link. I put the link where I got that information. There is a link. I mean, listen, you're asking me for chapter and verse. Is a link to him speaking where he likens an actress, a black American actress, to a monkey. And
well, there's literally no chance I would defend something like that. But the point is, I would defend the right of anybody to say something I disagree with, and you ought to too, and especially as a college student, and I think you're still a college student.
I'm a graduate student, and I actually
You're
teach.
a graduate student, you teach.
He teaches.
Then you're in a world that was created specifically
to
protect people who have non-mainstream opinions.
But that space does not protect everybody. Let's be clear about that.
Apparently it doesn't. It doesn't protect people you disagree with.
Does it protect people who advocate killing cops? Do you think that will go well? If someone wanted to go and speak on a college campus,
for sure,
a tour that said that talked
the time.
Yes.
Really? I really want to know. I really want to know where does anybody.
Have you been to a Black Lives Matter protest?
Absolutely not.
What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. It's a popular sentiment.
Police officer.
Really?
And they do not.
I wish we had the tape. We've only played it like 5
That is a distortion.
Okay, but
right.
Look,
so that doesn't have the point being that your La La Land of college campuses being open to everybody to say whatever they want doesn't exist because we have a criteria.
This is the best thing on TV.
Right? We believe for 200 years that all men are created equal.
Well,
you fuck off with that.
Yeah. Okay. People who come out and say no, some people aren't equal. Women are inferior when it comes to this.
Never said
Blacks are inferior when it comes to that. Muslims
never
are inferior.
said that.
People who say that, they go against the grain of a lot of people who get very angry.
I never said that, and you should be able to say that. This is what Milo, just pause it for a sec. I was talking to Milo about this, and he goes, you know what's funny? I'm not the guy they say I am, but if I was, I should still have the right to talk. You should have a Holocaust denier on your campus. You should have a Nazi on your campus. You should have David Duke. You should have a militant Black Panther talking about killing cops. All of those people should be there. That's what university should be, a hashing out of ideas. You should have crazy lesbian separatists that think we should live in a world without men. You should get them all up there. There's a Q&A after. Ask them how we reproduce without men. And when they say women need men like a fish need a bicycle, how do you get inseminated then? Turkey basters or the men in little cages? That's what an interesting talk would be. It's not interesting when free speech is all about, I prefer the Rolling Stones to the Beatles. All right, let's just wrap this up here. We'll see how much more we can take, but I'm at the end of my rope. And yes, Tucker is a New York stud.
Of a rational discussion.
Okay,
right?
so when people
Republican students, if they want to have a rational discussion on campus, they should have a talk about something that matters.
This is how he just ends it up. It's like a cat playing with a mouse, and then eventually he just goes,
We're almost out of time. If I want to know what the new rules are, as created by you, the graduate student, what are the rules for, as you said, rational conversation?
I don't pretend to create rules.
Where can I go on the internet to find out what speech is protected and what speech isn't protected, according to you and your friends at NYU? Is there a website
We don't
that tells
make rules. I don't pretend to make rules, and I don't want to be in a position of being administrator of a college. I think it's a very difficult job. That's not what I want to do.
Okay,
but college
it's a very difficult job. I don't want to do it.
Are responsible for the safety of their students on campus. Right, and when someone comes and advocates for this idea, the racist ideas, right, it can hurt people, right?
Okay,
and
so
the example that I used in my op-ed that you bring up is 2 weeks ago, some guy walks into a mosque, kills 6 people, right? After he heard, and this is documented, after he heard the speech of a far-right politician.
Can you just pause it? That's a lie. First of all, with the Quebec shooting, that is a very fishy case, and I say it was exactly what the press says it is. They do this with Dylan Roof. They pretend that it's not just some nut bar in a bowl cut and Adderall eyes who goes out and shoots people because he's mental. They pretend it was influenced by this imminent white supremacist threat. No, it's a lunatic, okay? Unlike Muslims who are reading the Quran, they don't have a book. He wasn't just reading Ted Kaczynski. And the Quebec shooter, we heard Allah Akbar, we heard there was 2 shooters, then the one named Muhammad becomes a witness. I don't know what is going on with that. Faith Goldie did some great reporting on that, but it's a very fishy story. But he just heard a speech. They went through his whole Facebook and they found one Le Pen like click. They also found a Donald Trump like click. These are 2 of the most popular politicians in the world. Yes, they got a like click. Maybe he was liking it so he would read it later. We don't know. This guy was also obsessed with the water supply in America. He was worried about in the world. And he was worried about the third world running out of water. He's doing an ice bucket challenge to raise awareness about water shortages in the third world. But no, now it's because he heard a campus Nazi, and the campus Nazi said, go shoot up a mosque. Again, he's talking about La La Land. He makes these hysterical hypotheticals and then bases a philosophy on it. Anyway, keep going. I'm glad we stayed for that lie.
Actually have effect, right?
So if I were to go to a rally and people said, I'm just pulling this out of thin air, pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon
Cat eats the
about
mouse.
police officers, advocating the killing of cops. I mean, you would say that's unacceptable. That should not be allowed. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if student group wants to have a discussion about police brutality
No, if they were
or
to use
racism,
if they were to use that phrase, pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon.
I'm not interested in the phrase. I'm not going to debate you over this phrase should be allowed or
because
not.
you have no principles. That's why. Because all the things you've been saying for the last 11 minutes are totally untrue.
And I came here because I
All right, that's enough.
I will
That's
get it
enough. The cat already ate the mouse. Why are you sitting there? What are you, some sort of, you have a morbid fascination with dead mice? Why would you watch that? If you send your children to college in this day and age, you are guilty of child abuse. Colleges are a car factory where they've been lowering the quality of the car to the point now where it doesn't run and it has no safety precautions. So if you were to get in the car, you're less safe than if you're walking down the street. And you can't even work it. It doesn't work. Yet the price quadruples every few years. If that was a real car company, that wasn't a hyperbolic analogy, that company would go out of business. Colleges should go out of business. So unless your kid's taking STEM and they're interested in science and mathematics and things that exist here on Earth and have checks and balances, then don't send your kid to college. Look at what it is. It's a Nazi fighting camp in a world without Nazis, so they're forced to fabricate them out of thin air. It's a children's book, literally. Hi, folks. That was a Rebel Media short. I have my own show on Rebel Media called How's It Going? You got to pay for that one. Check it out right here.